I stood in the driveway, the gravel crunching under my heels, staring at the house that had been my home for 30 years. The roses I'd planted still bloomed along the fence, their crimson petals a stark contrast to the cold white exterior. This was the place where I'd raised my son, David, where I'd laughed and cried, where I'd buried my husband, George, in memories if not in body. Now, it belonged to David and his wife, Claire, or so they thought. The invitation to their vow renewal, a glossy card with gold-embossed letters, lay crumpled in my purse. I hadn't been invited. Claire had made that clear. It's a small affair, Eleanor, she'd said, her voice saccharine over the phone. We're keeping it intimate. Intimate. A word that cut deeper than any knife. I wasn't just uninvited. I was erased. The decision to act came not from anger, though there was plenty of that, but from a quiet, simmering need for justice. Claire had always been a puzzle I couldn't solve. She'd swept into David's life 5 years ago, a whirlwind of charm and ambition, and I tried to love her. I'd welcomed her, cooked her favorite meals, even gifted her my mother's pearl necklace on their wedding day. But Claire had a way of smiling that never reached her eyes, a way of turning every conversation into a transaction. She wanted the house, the status, the life I'd built, and she wanted me out of it. David, my sweet, loyal boy, had changed under her influence. He stopped calling, stopped visiting, stopped looking at me like I was his mother. I didn't recognize him anymore, and that hurt more than Claire's rejection. I sat in my car, the engine still warm, and pulled out the deed. It was an old document, yellowed at the edges, but the words were clear: Eleanor Marie Thompson, sole owner. George and I had never transferred it to David. Not officially. It was a formality we'd meant to address. But life got in the way: his illness, my grief, their wedding. Now, that oversight was my leverage. I'd spent weeks consulting lawyers, discreetly, ensuring every step was legal. The house was mine, and I could reclaim it. I could renew the deed in my name, lock them out, make them feel the sting of exclusion as I had. It wasn't just revenge. It was a reclamation of my dignity, my legacy, my place in this family. The lawyer's office was a sterile place, all glass and chrome, a world away from the warmth of my old home. Mr. Hargrove, a man with kind eyes and a penchant for paperwork, slid the documents across his desk. You're sure about this, Eleanor? He asked, peering over his glasses. I nodded, my heart pounding. It's my house, I said simply. He didn't press further. The process was straightforward: file the paperwork, pay the fees, and the deed would be updated. No one could contest it. Not David. Not Claire. I signed my name with a flourish, the pen heavy in my hand, and felt a strange mix of triumph and guilt. This wasn't just about a house. It was about proving I still mattered. Driving back, I thought of David as a boy, running through the sprinklers in the backyard, his laughter echoing off the walls. I thought of George, his steady hand on mine as we planned our future in that house. Claire had no claim to those memories, no right to strip them away. But as I pulled into my apartment complex, a small, practical place I'd moved to after giving them the house, doubt crept in. Was I punishing David for Claire's sins? Was I breaking the family I'd fought so hard to hold together? I pushed the thoughts aside. Justice wasn't always clean. Sometimes it was a sharp, jagged thing, and I was ready to wield it. The vow renewal was in 3 days. Claire had planned it meticulously, no doubt, with her usual flair for extravagance. I imagined her in a flowing white dress, David beaming beside her, guests toasting to their love in the garden I'd tended. I wouldn't be there, but I'd make sure they felt my presence. The deed would be finalized the same day. A quiet bombshell dropped into their perfect celebration. I pictured Claire's face, her composure cracking as she realized the house she'd claimed as her own was no longer hers. I wanted her to feel small, just as she'd made me feel. But David would he understand? Would he see this as betrayal or as a mother's desperate cry for relevance? I spent the evening sorting through old photos, a ritual that both soothed and wounded me. There was David at 5, gap-toothed and grinning, holding a fish he'd caught with George. There was our family at Christmas, the tree glowing in the living room that Claire now redecorated every season. I traced my finger over David's face, wondering when he'd stop being mine. Claire had woven herself into his life so tightly that I'd become an outsider. But I wasn't powerless. The house was my anchor, my proof that I'd built something lasting. By reclaiming it, I was reclaiming myself. Sleep didn't come easily that night. I lay awake, staring at the ceiling, replaying every moment that had led me here. Claire's dismissive tone, David's silence, the weight of the deed in my hands. I wasn't a vengeful person, or so I'd always believed. But this felt different. This was about survival, about refusing to be erased. I closed my eyes, picturing the house, its walls holding decades of love and loss. It was mine, and I would take it back. The morning of the vow renewal dawned gray and heavy, the sky threatening rain. I sat at my kitchen table, sipping coffee that had gone cold, the deed paperwork neatly stacked beside me. The lawyer had called to confirm everything was in order. By noon, the county records would reflect my name as the sole owner of the house. I tried to focus on that, on the victory, but my mind kept drifting to David. Would he hate me for this? I wanted to believe he'd understand, that he'd see Claire's influence for what it was. But doubt gnawed at me. I'd raised him to value family, to honor loyalty. Had I failed him somewhere along the way? Or had Claire simply outmaneuvered me? I drove to the house, not to confront them, but to see it one last time before the paperwork was finalized. I parked a block away, hidden by a row of oaks, and watched as caterers bustled in and out. White tents dotted the lawn, fairy lights twinkling despite the daylight. Claire's touch was everywhere extravagant, polished, impersonal. I wondered if David even noticed how little of him was in this spectacle. I remembered his wedding, how he'd insisted on writing his own vows, his voice trembling with sincerity. That boy was still in there, I told myself. I just had to reach him. The idea of confronting Claire flickered through my mind, but I dismissed it. She'd only twist my words, paint me as the bitter mother-in-law. Instead, I'd let the deed speak for itself. I'd hired a courier to deliver the updated documents to their doorstep at the height of the ceremony, a calculated move to ensure maximum impact. I pictured Claire's face, her perfect smile faltering as she read the notice. I wanted her to feel the ground shift beneath her, to know she couldn't control everything. But the image of David's confusion, his hurt, kept intruding. I gripped the steering wheel, my knuckles white, and forced myself to breathe. This was justice, not cruelty. Back at my apartment, I busied myself with mundane tasks: laundry, dishes, anything to keep my hands moving while my mind raced. The courier would arrive at 3 p.m., right when Claire and David would be exchanging their vows under the pergola I'd built with George. I imagined the guests, blissfully unaware, sipping champagne as the courier handed over the envelope. Would Claire open it immediately, or would she tuck it away, too proud to let her perfect day be ruined? I hoped she'd open it. I wanted her to know, in that moment, that I wasn't invisible. The phone rang, startling me. It was Sarah. My oldest friend. The only one I'd confided in about the deed. Eleanor, are you sure you want to go through with this? She asked, her voice gentle but firm. I hesitated. Sarah had always been my anchor, the one who saw through my bravado to the fear beneath. It's not about the house, I said finally. It's about what she's done to us. To David. Sarah sighed. Just be careful. You're playing with fire. And it's not just Claire who'll get burned. Her words lingered, heavy with truth. But I couldn't back down now. I spent the afternoon pacing, checking the clock every few minutes. At 2:45, my phone buzzed with a text from the courier, package ready for delivery. My heart raced. This was it. The moment I'd been planning for weeks. I pictured the envelope in Claire's hands. The official seal. The words that would undo her carefully constructed world. But as the minutes ticked by, the thrill began to fade, replaced by a hollow ache. What if David didn't understand? What if this pushed him further away? I poured myself a glass of wine, the liquid trembling in my hand, and tried to steady my nerves. At 3:15, my phone rang again. It was David. My breath caught as I answered, expecting anger, accusation. Mom, he said, his voice soft, almost broken. Why didn't you tell me? My stomach dropped. He'd seen the deed. The courier must have been early. David. I started. But he cut me off. Claire's been lying to me. About you. About everything. I found her emails. I froze, the wine glass halfway to my lips. Emails. This wasn't about the deed. He didn't know yet. What emails? I asked, my voice barely a whisper. She told everyone you didn't want to come. He said. She said you were too sick. That you didn't care. But I found her messages to her sister. She banned you. Mom. She didn't want you there. The world tilted. Claire hadn't just excluded me. She'd erased me, rewritten my story to suit her narrative. I wanted to feel vindicated, but all I felt was pain. David was hurting, and I'd been ready to hurt him more. I'm coming over, he said. We need to talk. I nodded, though he couldn't see me, and hung up. The deed was still out there, on its way to their doorstep. I had minutes to decide let it land, let it shatter them, or call it back and face this another way. David's call left me reeling. I stood in my small living room, the phone still warm in my hand, trying to process what he'd said. Claire had lied, not just to me, but to everyone, painting me as the absent mother, too frail or indifferent to attend their vow renewal. It was a calculated move, one that stung more than the exclusion itself. She'd stolen my place in my son's life, and now she tried to rewrite my story. But David knew the truth, or at least part of it. The deed was still coming, a ticking bomb I could no longer control. I called the courier, my voice shaking, but it was too late. The package had been delivered. I drove to the house, my heart pounding as I navigated familiar streets. The rain had started, a light drizzle that blurred the windshield. I didn't know what I'd say to David, how I'd explain the deed without sounding like the villain Claire had made me out to be. When I pulled up, the tents were still standing, but the guests were gone. The fairy lights dimmed. David stood in the driveway, alone, his suit jacket soaked through. He looked like the boy I'd raised, lost and searching for answers. I stepped out of the car, the rain cold against my skin, and called his name. He turned, his face a mix of relief and confusion. Mom, he said, crossing the distance between us. He hugged me, something he hadn't done in years, and I felt the weight of his pain. I didn't know, he said into my shoulder. I thought you didn't want to come. I pulled back, looking into his eyes. So like George's. I wanted to be here. David. More than anything. He nodded, his jaw tight. She lied to me. About you. About the house. About everything. I froze. The house? I asked, my voice barely audible over the rain. He led me inside. The warmth of the house a stark contrast to the chill outside. The living room was a mess of abandoned champagne glasses and wilting flowers. David handed me a tablet. Claire's emails open on the screen. She was planning to sell it. He said, his voice raw. She told her sister she'd convince me after the renewal. That it was our ticket to a new life. She never mentioned you owned it. My knees buckled, and I sank onto the couch. Claire hadn't just wanted me out. She'd wanted to erase every trace of me, to profit from my life's work. The deed notice sat unopened on the coffee table, its white envelope stark against the clutter. David hadn't seen it yet. I reached for it, my hands trembling. But he stopped me. What's that? He asked. I hesitated, the weight of my decision pressing down. It's the deed, I said finally. I never transferred it to you. It's still in my name. His eyes widened, but he didn't pull away. I was going to tell you. I continued, the words spilling out. Claire banned me. David. She made me feel like I didn't belong in my own family. So I renewed it. In my name. He stared at me, processing. You were going to take the house? He asked, not accusing, just trying to understand. I nodded, tears mixing with the rain on my cheeks. I wanted her to feel what I felt. Invisible. Powerless. He sat beside me, silent for a long moment. I don't blame you, he said finally. But I wish you'd told me. The guilt hit me like a wave. I'd let my anger at Claire blind me to the collateral damage David. Caught in the crossfire. We talked for hours, the rain drumming against the windows. He told me about Claire's growing distance, her obsession with status, how she'd pushed him to cut ties with me to move forward. I told him about the years of hurt, the way her small slights had built into an unbearable weight. The deed sat between us, a symbol of my desperation, but also of my love for him. I didn't want to lose you, I said, my voice breaking. He took my hand, his grip firm. You haven't, Mom. You won't. As the rain slowed, we heard the front door open. Claire's voice called out, bright and oblivious. David, where are you? She stepped into the living room, her white dress damp but still pristine, and froze when she saw me. Her eyes darted to the tablet, then to the envelope. What's going on? She asked, her tone sharp. David stood, his face hard. We need to talk. Claire. About everything. I watched her, the woman who'd tried to erase me, and felt a flicker of pity. She didn't know it yet, but her perfect world was about to unravel. Claire's eyes narrowed as she stood in the doorway, her perfect composure fraying at the edges. The rain had left her hair slightly mussed, a rare imperfection, and I couldn't help but feel a grim satisfaction. David stepped forward, the tablet still in his hand, his face a storm of emotions I hadn't seen since he was a teenager, wrestling with right and wrong. Claire, he said, his voice steady but cold. Why did you tell everyone Mom was too sick to come? Her gaze flicked to me, then back to him, calculating. I didn't say that, she replied, too quickly. I said she might not be up for it. It's not the same thing. David held up the tablet, the emails glowing accusingly. You told your sister you banned her. You said she'd ruined the aesthetic. What the hell? Claire. Her face paled, but she recovered fast, her lips curving into that practiced smile. David, you're misunderstanding. I was protecting you. Your mother's been so fragile since your father passed. I didn't want her to feel overwhelmed. I laughed, a sharp, bitter sound that startled even me. Fragile, I said, standing. You didn't want me here because I don't fit your perfect image. You wanted my house, my son, my life, but not me. Claire's smile faltered, but she didn't back down. That's not true, Eleanor. I've always respected you. The lie hung in the air, thick and suffocating. David opened the envelope, pulling out the deed notice. Then why were you planning to sell the house? He asked, his voice breaking. You didn't even know it was still in Mom's name. Claire's eyes widened, her composure cracking like thin ice. She reached for the paper, but David held it out of reach. You were going to sell our home, he said, without telling me the truth. She tried to pivot, her voice softening. David, I was thinking of us. This house is too big, too old. We could start fresh, build something new. But her words rang hollow, and David wasn't buying it. You lied to me, he said. You lied about Mom, about the house, about everything. How am I supposed to trust you? Claire's eyes darted to me, and for the first time, I saw fear in them. Not of me, but of losing control. Eleanor, she said, turning to me. Tell him this is a misunderstanding. We can work this out. I shook my head, my voice calm but firm. You made your choices, Claire. You chose to push me out, to rewrite my place in this family. But this house is mine, and I'm taking it back. Her mouth opened, then closed, as if she couldn't find the words. David looked between us, his face torn. Mom, he said quietly, what do you want to do? The question caught me off guard. I'd expected anger, defiance, not this trust, this deference. I looked at the deed in his hands, the symbol of my revenge, and felt the weight of what came next. I want us to be a family again, I said, my voice trembling. But that means honesty. David. No more lies. He nodded, his eyes glistening. Claire took a step back, sensing the shift. David, you can't seriously be siding with her, she said, her voice rising. She's trying to take everything from us. But David didn't waver. No, Claire, he said. You did that. The words hung heavy, and for a moment, no one spoke. The rain had stopped, leaving only the drip of water from the eaves, a quiet reminder of the storm outside and within. Claire turned and walked out, her heels clicking on the hardwood. I wanted to feel triumphant, but all I felt was exhaustion. David sat beside me, the deed still in his hands. What happens now? He asked. I didn't have an answer. Not yet. The house was mine again, legally, but it felt hollow without him in it. We figure it out, I said. Together. He nodded, and for the first time in years, I felt like I had my son back. But the victory was bittersweet. Claire wasn't gone. Not really. And the wounds she'd left would take time to heal. I stayed at the house that night, in my old bedroom, the one I'd shared with George. The familiar creak of the floorboards, the faint scent of lavender from the garden, brought back memories I'd buried. I wondered if I'd done the right thing, if reclaiming the house was worth the pain it would cause. But as I drifted to sleep, David's words echoed in my mind. You haven't lost me, Mom. Maybe, just maybe, this was the start of redemption, not just for me, but for us. The morning after the confrontation, the house felt eerily quiet, as if it were holding its breath. David had stayed over, sleeping in his old room, and I found him in the kitchen, staring out at the garden. The remnants of the vow renewal were still scattered across the lawn-torn streamers. Overturned chairs, a testament to the chaos of the night before. I poured him a coffee, the silence between us heavy but not uncomfortable. "Did you sleep?" I asked, sliding the mug across the counter. He shook his head. "Not much. Too many thoughts." I nodded, understanding. My own mind had been a battlefield all night, torn between relief and dread. Claire hadn't returned. David said she'd gone to her sister's, leaving a curt note about needing space. I wanted to believe she was gone for good, but I knew better. Claire was a fighter, and she wouldn't let go of her carefully curated life without a struggle. David sipped his coffee, his eyes distant. "I should have seen it," he said. "The way she talked about you. The way she pushed you away. I thought she was just protective." I reached for his hand, squeezing it gently. "You loved her, David. Love blinds us sometimes." He looked at me, his eyes searching. "Did I lose you because of her?" The question hit me like a punch. I wanted to tell him no, that he could never lose me. But the truth was more complicated. "You drifted," I said softly. "But you're here now. That's what matters." He nodded, but I could see the guilt weighing him down. I wanted to fix it, to take away his pain, but I knew some wounds had to heal on their own. Instead, I changed the subject. "What do you want to do about the house?" I asked. The deed was still in my name, a legal reality that loomed over us. David sighed. "It's yours, Mom. It always was. But I don't know where that leaves me." We spent the morning cleaning up the garden, a quiet teamwork that felt like a step toward healing. As we gathered soggy napkins and broken glass, David opened up about Claire's behavior over the years, the subtle manipulations, the way she'd isolate him from friends, from me. "I thought I was building a life with her," he said, tossing a shattered wine glass into a trash bag. "But it was her life, not mine." I listened, my heart aching for him. I'd been so focused on my own hurt that I hadn't fully seen his. Claire hadn't just betrayed me. She'd betrayed him too. By noon, the lawyer called to confirm the deed was officially recorded. The house was mine, indisputably. I should have felt triumphant. But instead, I felt a strange emptiness. The house was just walls and memories without David in it. I found him in the living room, looking at an old photo of Usham, George, and me, laughing on a beach vacation. "I miss this," he said, his voice thick. "I miss us." I sat beside him, the photo warm under my fingers. "We can find our way back," I said, "but it's going to take time." That afternoon, Claire called. David put her on speaker, her voice sharp and controlled. "We need to talk, David. This is getting out of hand." I braced myself, expecting her to lash out. But she was calm, almost conciliatory. "I made a mistake," she said. "I shouldn't have kept Eleanor out. Let's meet. Figure this out as a family." David glanced at me, his expression unreadable. "What about the house?" he asked. There was a pause. Then Claire's voice, softer now. I didn't know it was still in her name. "I swear, David, I just wanted what's best for us." I didn't believe her. But David's face softened, and I felt a pang of fear. Was he slipping back under her spell? We agreed to meet her at a cafe the next day. I didn't trust her, but David insisted. "I need to hear her out," he said. I need to know if there's anything worth saving. I nodded, though every instinct screamed to protect him. As we left the house, I looked back at the roses, their petals drooping under the weight of the rain. They'd survived storms before, and so would we. But Claire was a different kind of storm, one I wasn't sure we were ready for. The cafe was crowded, the hum of conversation and clinking dishes a stark contrast to the tension at our table. Claire sat across from us, her hands folded neatly, her face a mask of calm regret. She wore a tailored blazer, her hair pulled back, every inch the polished professional. David sat beside me, his posture rigid, his eyes searching her for something I couldn't see. I kept my hands in my lap, resisting the urge to fidget. This was her stage now, and I knew she'd play her part well. I owe you both an apology, she began, her voice soft but deliberate. I made a terrible mistake, excluding Eleanor. I thought I was protecting our day, but I was wrong. David leaned forward, his jaw tight. You lied, Claire. You told everyone she didn't want to come. You tried to sell the house without telling me it wasn't even ours. Claire's eyes flicked to me, a flash of something anger, fear before she softened again. I didn't know about the deed, she said. I assumed it was ours. I thought we could use the money to start over, to build something new. Her words were smooth, rehearsed, but David wasn't swayed. You should have told me, he said. You should have told us both. I stayed silent, watching her. Claire was good. I'd give her that. Every gesture, every word was calculated to pull David back in. But I saw the cracks the way her fingers tightened around her coffee cup, the way her smile didn't quite reach her eyes. Eleanor, she said, turning to me. I know I've hurt you. I want to make this right. Let's work together. Keep the family intact. Her words were a lifeline, but I wasn't drowning. You don't get to decide what family means, I said, my voice steady. You tried to erase me, Claire. That's not a mistake. That's a choice. David's hand found mine under the table, a small gesture that grounded me. Claire's face tightened, but she pressed on. I'm not perfect, she said, but I love David. I want us to be a family, all of us. I wanted to believe her, for David's sake, but I couldn't. Not yet. Then prove it, I said. Show us you're willing to change. She nodded, her eyes glistening with what might have been tears a very good act. David said little, his silence louder than words. We left the cafe with no clear resolution, just a promise to talk again. David was quiet on the drive back, his hands tight on the wheel. Do you think she's sincere? He asked finally. I hesitated, choosing my words carefully. I think she's scared, I said. She's losing control, and she'll say whatever keeps you close. He nodded, his face grim. I don't know what to do, Mom. I love her, but I can't trust her. My heart ached for him, caught between love and betrayal. You don't have to decide now, I said. Give it time. Back at the house, we sat in the living room, the deed still a silent presence. David picked it up, turning it over in his hands. What do you want to do with this? He asked. I looked around, at the walls that held so many memories, and felt a shift inside me. The house was mine, but it wasn't about ownership anymore. It was about us, about rebuilding what Claire had tried to tear apart. I want it to be ours, I said. Yours, mine, the family's, but only if we can be honest with each other. He nodded, a small smile breaking through. I'd like that. For the first time in years, I felt a spark of hope. But Claire wasn't done. That evening, She texted David, asking to meet alone. Against my better judgment, he agreed. I need closure, he said, his voice firm. I watched him leave, my stomach twisting. Claire was a master at manipulation, and I feared what she'd do to keep him. But I had to trust David, trust that he'd see her for what she was. As the door closed behind him, I sat in the quiet house, praying I hadn't lost him again. David returned late that night, his face drawn but resolute. I'd spent the evening pacing, imagining every possible outcome of his meeting with Claire. When he walked through the door, I searched his eyes for answers. What happened? I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. He sank onto the couch, running a hand through his hair. She wants to try again, he said. She says she'll change, that she'll include you, make things right. My heart sank, but I stayed quiet, letting him continue. But I told her it's over. I can't live with someone who lies like that, who manipulates everyone around her. Relief washed over me, but it was tempered by sadness. David was grieving not just for his marriage, but for the life he'd thought he'd have. I sat beside him, my hand on his shoulder. I'm sorry, I said, and I meant it. I'd wanted Claire gone, but not at the cost of his pain. Don't be, he said, his voice firm. You opened my eyes, Mom. If you hadn't done what you did with the deed, I might never have seen the truth. His words were a balm, but they didn't erase the guilt. I'd set this in motion, and now we were all living with the consequences. Over the next few days, David and I began to rebuild. We sorted through the house, deciding what to keep, what to change. The act of cleaning out Claire's redecorated rooms felt like reclaiming our history. We found old photos, George's fishing rods, mementos of a life before her. David laughed for the first time in days when we uncovered his childhood baseball glove, the leather worn but intact. I thought this was gone, he said, slipping it on. I smiled, my heart full. These were the moments I'd fought for, the ones Claire could never take. Claire didn't go quietly. She sent letters, called incessantly, even showed up at the house once, her face a mask of contrition. David was firm, telling her to leave, but I saw the toll it took. I wanted to hate her, but I couldn't, not fully. She was human, flawed, driven by her own fears and ambitions. I wondered if she'd ever find peace, or if she'd keep chasing a version of herself that didn't exist. David, though, was done chasing. He started therapy, something I hadn't expected but admired. I need to figure out why I let her control me, he said. I owe that to myself. And to you? The house became our sanctuary, a place to heal. I moved back in, with David's blessing, and we started planning its future. We talked about keeping it in the family, maybe passing it to David's future children. A legacy of love rather than control. The deed was still in my name, but it felt less like a weapon now, more like a promise. I began to see my actions not as revenge, but as a wake-up call for David, for me, for what we could be. One evening, as we sat on the porch, watching the sunset paint the roses gold, David turned to me. I'm sorry, Mom, he said, for letting her come between us. I shook my head, tears stinging my eyes. We're here now, I said. That's enough. He hugged me, and for the first time in years, I felt whole. The house, the deed, the pine, it had all led us here, to this moment of redemption. Claire had tried to break us, but we were stronger than she'd ever know. Months passed, and the house began to feel like home again. David and I worked together to restore it, not just its walls, but its spirit. We repainted the living room in the soft blue George had loved, replanted the garden with new roses, and filled the rooms with laughter and memories. Claire's presence lingered in small ways of forgotten scarf, a photo frame she'd chosen, but we let them go, one by one, replacing them with pieces of us. David started dating again, cautiously, and I watched him rediscover himself. The boy who'd once promised to build me a treehouse. I thought often about justice, about what it meant. Reclaiming the deed had been my way of fighting back, of refusing to be erased. But it was David's choice to stand by me, to see the truth. That gave it meaning. I'd acted out of hurt, but it had led us to healing. I wondered if that was what redemption looked like, not a clean victory, but a messy, human journey towards something better. I kept the deed in my name, but with a new purpose, to ensure the house remained a place of love, not control. One spring afternoon, David and I sat in the garden, the roses in full bloom. He'd brought a bottle of wine, a nod to the evenings we'd spent with George, talking about everything and nothing. "I've been thinking," he said, pouring me a glass. "I want to start a family someday. Here, in this house." My heart swelled, tears blurring my vision. "I'd like that," I said. "Your father would have too." We toasted to the future, to the family we were rebuilding, to the love that had survived. Claire sent a letter that summer, a final attempt at closure. She apologized, sincerely this time, and asked for forgiveness. I read it alone, in the quiet of my bedroom, and felt a strange peace. I didn't hate her anymore. She'd made her choices, and we'd made ours. I wrote back, a short note wishing her well, and let her go. David didn't need to know. He was moving forward, and so was I. The house stood as a testament to our resilience, its walls holding not just memories, but hope. I walked through it daily, touching the banister George had carved, the doorframe where David's height was marked. This was my legacy, not of revenge, but of love. I'd fought for it, and in doing so, I'd found my son again. As the sun set, casting long shadows across the garden, I felt George's presence, a quiet approval. We'd made it through the storm, and we were home,